technology has been evolving, and there has never been a higher demand and need for legal tech, whether it comes to services or even the legal framework itself. And the need to upgrade our system as a country as a whole, this is definitely the need of the hour. And a lot of people don't necessarily know what the avenues are that have been explored or that remain untapped. And we are so lucky to have this distinguished panel before us to speak on the same. One of the things that have absolutely, changed, I believe, in the legal world is, these idea that you can do so much of your proceedings online through virtual spheres. And, we have here Dr. Karnika Seth, who has actually written the manual on e-filing. So I would like to start with you, Dr. Seth. Could you please tell us, how do you think virtual courts are evolving in India?
At a fast pace, especially the pandemic has, spurred a complete change in the way we have access to justice system in the country. And the last 2 years, if you've seen, in fact, from the earlier times as well, we had already started working on the virtual court system. And the e-filing manual and the e-filing, the e-court mission project took off, and many, in fact, the software is available for almost 21 high courts and district courts in India, and it's being already implemented across many courts. So that has been successful. And apart from that, we have a lot of, changes during the pandemic, like you would have seen the virtual hearings which have been conducted for urgent matters. And not only that, I would say that the ODR is also taking off a lot because, alternate dispute resolution as a mechanism for out-of-court settlements has also been a very interesting area to explore, because of the huge backlog of cases we have in the country. So mediation, ADR, and arbitration has also been very effective, especially during the pandemic. A lot of those small cases have been resolved with the help of ODR platforms. My experience with ODR and ADR and otherwise, handling these cases in the virtual space has been quite satisfying. In fact, what I've seen is that a lot of speed, a lot of convenience, and the localization is not really necessary anymore. You can be anywhere and argue even matters in different states. So that has really helped, litigants as well. Apart from lawyers and the ease of access, that has been, increasing the productivity, in fact, increasing the efficiency of our systems. Now, the challenges are also there. I just want to mention a few. For example, you don't have a standard software. Sometimes the courts may have adopted a particular platform and the other courts may have another platform. And that has been a challenge. So standardization is something which I really feel is a need or hour. And not only that, the practice manuals, across courts, various courts, they have different ways of, filing. Sometimes it may not be the same. So how an electronic evidence is taken in a court, or otherwise, how filings have to be done. Even changes in law may be necessary at this point. So when we talk about our electronic evidence or otherwise, any kind of filing, the IT Act itself may need an amendment. So I think a lot of nations, especially during the epidemic, have in fact incorporated new laws in itself. There have been countries who have passed, which have passed separate laws altogether. So that's something which we still have to, look at, how we impart training, how we bring more districts, remote areas under the access to justice umbrella. Are some of the challenges which I think both technical industry, tech legal world is facing today. So apart from obviously the basic issues initially where people were not so tech savvy, were not used to certain platforms, those things have gone by now. Most people are used to it. But nevertheless, I think there are still milestones to cross, in the virtual court system. The biggest I would say advantage here is the zero trust system, which, zero trust model in the software in the tech industry is the latest craze, which I think is going to be helpful. Even blockchain, we can use AI, even in our research, legal research, the libraries have overall, the way we used to work, the lawyers, is completely changed with AI, robotics, and e-courts, which are even passing judgments, petty challans through e-courts, and robotics. So we are not far from embracing this technology and embracing the virtual court system in the real sense. It has actually taken off during this time. That's how I feel about it.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for highlighting that. There is always this joke that they say that technology is ahead of the law, but that is actually a very real concern also, that we need to make sure that we are always up to date and that, there isn't anything unlawful happening. And anytime you change something, the legal framework sort of has to adjust that and add it to its system. And I would like to welcome Dr. Pavan Duggal to our panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes, and we just heard from doctors there talking about how this whole virtual court system is evolving, and also about how internationally countries are also amending their legal system to kind of keep up with these changes. I would like to ask you, how do you think the rate of the legal tech awareness and readiness of Indian law firms are kind of working compared to maybe our global counterparts?
Well, by and large, when I look at the law firm ecosystem in India as a whole, barring some selected law firms who are doing some remarkable work in the area of technology adoption and technological tools, by and large, I find that there is still a gap. However, COVID-19 has propelled that gap to be shortened, to be narrowed and minimized. Why? Because almost everybody has today understood that today a client is wanting the dissemination of legal services and legal advice through technology. And whether now it's the courts who are going through video conferencing, there is no other alternative. So consequently, a lot of people have been forced to start adopting it as law firms, as small tier law firms, middle tier law firms, though some of the big players have already been doing it for quite some time. But with this now thing being an integral part of our lives, I believe that this is going to be a monumental mindset change, for the very simple reason that I believe that this is going to be continuing as a default option even when the courts fully open up. And more law firms and even clients would rather prefer to use the technological means as a methodology for the purposes of getting access to administration of justice and to justice per se. So I believe this is now an irreversible phenomenon, and we have to be just mentally prepared for it. Why? Because if we can still after COVID-19 say, I will just deal with the technology from a long quarter and not really be engaged within, then clearly you're out of sync. Technology, internet, cyberspace are now an integral part of our lives, and there's no going back. In fact, we have to now be prepared for a new cyber age that's going to wait for us, where this is going to be the new default options. Therefore, more than this, I would be more concerned about Indian law firms being exposed to massive cybersecurity breaches, becoming victims of cyber crimes. In fact, in my latest book, New Cyber World Order Post-COVID-19, I've argued that the end of COVID-19 could see a new cyber age, in where there would be a new cyber world order. And two essential elements of this new cyber world order will be that there will be increasing cyber crimes and cybersecurity breaches will become the new default normal. Therefore, the Indian law firms have to start preparing in this particular regard per se. By and large, Indian clients have not been very fussy yet pertaining to how the data is being used, because they are traditionally still used to the traditional comfort factor zone of trust within the per se lawyer or the legal firm. But now everything going electronic, there will be increasing demands by the clients to ask as to what specific factors, processes, procedures law firms are adopting for the purposes of safeguarding the confidential data and information of clients per se. So I think it's a sea change, but far more work has yet to be done. We are only at the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the work is what's going to be unraveling in the next 1 decade.
Thank you so much, Dr. Duggal. And you make an excellent point there that, everything is now online. Tech is involved in every factor of our lives, and it's time to, if you can't embrace it, you still have to learn it. You still have to be a part of the system, because this is how our society is moving forward. And the pandemic has shown that this is not just a luxury. This is an absolute necessity. Thank you for your comments on that. But, I would like to actually ask, we've talked about some of the avenues of technology, the way it's being used. I would like to ask Ankoosh Mehta, could you tell us, what is the flip side of this rapid technological growth?
Everyone, and thank you for having me over. I think I'll probably just start with what Dr. Seth alluded to, where courts have as such picked up on online working and the efficiency in terms of online dispute resolution or courts have actually had some very, very amazing, results. There have been times where we've not met a client for over 2 years and completed that matter, and have gotten an award, and you've continued online work, throughout. Having said that, I think some challenges remain. So, having worked, also a lot in the criminal law angle on the law side of things, there are still challenges of how courts are summoning, prisoners and detainees to courts, whether there are mechanisms of having online evidence. These challenges remain. I had the occasion to talk to certain, sitting judges of trial courts who were explaining that these challenges remain. So that's, I think, one big thing, that remains to be addressed. On the other hand, how law enforcement agencies themselves are looking at these issues, whether they are, capable end-to-end to address and investigate such issues is something that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. And they are probably, while the technology is moving at, supersonic speed, I think law enforcement also should catch up very soon. Because the alarming rate of crimes that we are seeing, is increasing at such a furious pace that I think, everything, I think, as Dr. Duggal also said, we are entering a cyber age. I think hopefully, everything will sort of, come and merge at one common point. I just want to add a couple of more, instances. We do get, a lot of queries from clients on simple things like your bank account getting compromised, your SMSs, getting hacked, credit card pins taken away, whatever. I mean, these are all at the end of the day, your WhatsApp chats getting hacked. These are all at the end of the day, issues that are coming under the Information Technology Act, and therefore, can be qualified as a cybercrime or a cybersecurity or cyber fraud issue. So this is something that is rampant. This is something because businesses have, moved to a complete virtual online mode, including courts. I would also advise, as much as possible to try and be more vigilant, be more aware, be more watchful, because the amount of times we engage with our phone or our chats has increased also phenomenally. So, there's a chance that we may be letting our guard down as well. So I think that's something that we need to be careful about. One or two more points, when it comes to law enforcement or when it comes to, looking at which laws are in place, most certainly the Information Technology Act. But along with that, you have the Indian Penal Code, which is the most iconic, criminal legislation, and the Code of Criminal Procedure. So these are the 2 or 3, issues and angles that even the courts, law enforcement, even and we also, when we advise our clients, look at. So in a nutshell, I think the cyber world is here to stay, and it's given us an option of now working in sort of a hybrid way. But I think within a short time, hopefully everything will merge, and we'll be all good to go. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta, for your comments on this. And you're absolutely right. Of course, there's always going to be that cybercrime issue that as even Dr. Duggal pointed out, that people don't necessarily take it as they have a lot of trust. They put a lot of trust into the people they're working with and don't necessarily understand the risks that are there. But before delving a little bit more deeper into these issues, I would like to bring in Mr. Komal, the things that we are doing in the legal tech arena. Maybe what are some of the flip sides of it? Could you tell us, what are maybe the legal tech avenues that remain untapped in law firms in day-to-day work?
Okay, so I'm coming, extending to what Dr. Duggal said, that there are some firms which are doing, adopting legal tech exceptionally well, have tapped all the areas, while there are some that are doing a little bit. And I absolutely agree that it is the pandemic which has, for sure, forced people who wouldn't even want to look at legal tech to adopt legal tech in some way or the other, whatever was the most relevant for them. But to answer your question, I'd say, generally, so rather than talking about who's doing it best and who's doing it, lesser, I'd say that the ground rule is that look at what is repetitive and what is voluminous. If there is work that is repetitive and that is voluminous, that is what can be addressed by legal tech. And the other is, where is their data? And that data can be analyzed. So data analytics. These are 2 very important areas which will help you identify the areas where legal tech can be used. Now, I'm going to give you a few examples, and the examples will be in my head. There are two key stakeholders. One is practice areas, and the other is our clients. Our clients are really at the core of everything that we do. So for the clients, I believe that, and this is day to day, when they need to interact with us, perhaps they are trying to reach out to us and we're busy and we've not answered their call, or they've written an email that has been missed, we haven't been able to respond. So I feel that one of the solutions for clients that every law firm should build on is a client portal, where the client just is independently able to log in and just see what is happening in each and every matter of theirs. And everything related to that matter, whether it is the status of the matter, whether it is billing, whether it is any questions that need to be answered from the client, or what kind of communication has happened on matters, that really I do believe is one of the solutions that we need for our day-to-day working with clients. The other is, can we, I think our clients really ask for this, prediction of cost and prediction of outcomes. This is again coming from my point on analytics. So that is another legal tech angle that I feel is untapped. People are not looking at it and, seeing that big opportunity that lies in the data that we have to give us a solution on that. And then there is do-it-yourself templates. Now that also is in the practice, but that is also for clients, because clients are coming to us for various things which are again repetitive, voluminous. So do-it-yourself templates is a solution for clients. Now going to the practice areas, again, some of the very common ones, very common issues. I can go on with a long list of various areas, but the most common ones and the easily, doable ones are e-discovery. Now, e-discovery is something that we may not be talking about in terms of e-discovery, but look at, investigations, arbitrations, disputes, where we've got to review communication, electronic communication. And how do we really do it? Do we have a technology in place? And when I talk about technology, I am really talking about AI and ML-based technologies, which can, predict outcomes very quickly, which can help us do things faster, which can understand the way we are reviewing things, the way we, our style of drafting, etc., and then prompt us so that our work becomes far more efficient. So e-discovery is one of them where otherwise people are just printing papers and then making files. That's like traditional 25, 30 years ago, how the US lawyers would, do an e-discovery exercise. That's not what we want to do, and we want to bring in the best technologies to do e-discovery. The other, I feel, in the disputes practice, and that's my personal, on a personal level, I've had that experience, where I think dictation and translation, these two are day-to-day problems, big issues to resolve. And we need technology, given the various languages we have in the country. We need technologies to solve those, problems. I think the third one, where legal tech needs to again be adopted, is standardization. I talked about do-it-yourself templates. Whatever can be standardized, and once you have standardization, it's very easy to automate. It's easy for document automation. So standardization makes it easier to implement legal tech, and then legal tech becomes an enabler. Now, once you have document automation, then comes proofreading. All the time, we are spending so much of time doing proofreading of the documents that we draft. And humanly, especially when we are, drafting bulky documents, humanly, it is quite difficult to, be consistent throughout the documents. Again, proofreading with the drafting rules, where there are lots of AI-enabled technologies where, you can feed in the rules. You can feed in, say, for example, CAM. CAM can tell the technology that these are CAM style, drafting. This is the font, this is the, these are the various rules. And the tool will automatically, once I've drafted my document, will tell me that it is inconsistent with your rules. And then it'll correct it according to the rules that I've fed in. So again, something that can make your drafting so good, in quality and smooth. I also think contract lifecycle management, a very important technology that we are not using is case management system, which will answer all your problems again. One place for all your, matters and the status of every matter. So case management system is very important, which also helps in another day-to-day issue, which is the workflow and the work allocation, to amongst lawyers. Another one that I can think of is collaboration. How do we collaborate across practices, across locations? and also within teams. When we are working together on the same document, how do we make sure that each one is actually working on the latest one, and not that I'm working on one version and someone else is working on another. So collaboration is one more. So really, to sum up, anything that is repetitive, voluminous, can be standardized. We should look at using legal tech. And I think there is a huge gap right now. We are not using it that much. The other is data analytics. Look at opportunities where there's data and where analytics can be used. And there are lots and lots of technology solutions available in the market, which are AI and ML enabled. And once you start once you start getting into that journey, you will be able to identify areas where you can develop your own solutions. Pretty much what we are doing at CAM.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for highlighting and summarizing that so well. If you don't mind me asking a follow-up question, Ms. Gupta, because you did mention the costs and about having accessibility and normal people, regular people having accessibility. What would be, in your opinion, a good human to tech ratio to have, to increase justice and reduce legal costs?
So, I think, again, Vasudha, it's hard for me to come up with a percentage, but in my experience that I've seen, over 18, 19 years of using legal tech and delivering legal services using legal tech, there definitely is like a 30% efficiency that I can claim, And I think if we use the legal tech at the right places, it cannot replace the human, completely. I have to say this again and again, that legal tech is only an enabler. It is only making the lawyer better. It is my help, just as a lawyer would pick up a book and read from there, and that's his help or her help. That's what legal tech is also doing. It is not taking away my work. But we have to also admit that there are lots of things that we do which we don't necessarily have to do. I would like to spend my time in analyzing, in giving, thinking of what advice I need to give to my client. I'd like to meet my client rather than spending time in, printing paper and looking at, standard clauses and, or something that the technology can do. Why should I do? So I think it will be at about 20, 30 to 70 now. And perhaps if we get better and better at finding areas where we can implement legal tech, I think it should be at about 40, 60.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that. And, I would actually, Ms. Gupta has already kind of answered this, but I would actually like to open the same question up to the rest of the panel. How much of what legal tech solutions do you think we can, do you use, or would you like to use more? And how much of this, legal work can be left up to AI and tech? Ms. Gupta has mentioned that tech is always going to be the tool. The real work still comes from the lawyers. But, I would like to hear your perspective on this. And if I may start once again with Dr. Seth.
Yes, sure. There have been various solutions, legal tech solutions. I find a lot has changed in terms of legal research that we do. Softwares for, e-libraries, which are available now. They are definitely, changed over a period of time and become better and better. And not only that, I think in the IP software space, there's a lot which is happening in the trademark or copywriting and other areas, which has been quite efficient in terms of results and due diligence measures. Apart from this, I would say, when it comes to complex litigations, especially cross-border or otherwise, in ADR arbitrations, software tools which have enabled us to look at the right documents, pull up the right documents by insertion of keywords has been quite, time-saving. And that way, we don't have to print volumes of paper and just take out the relevant correspondence to be filed, in a particular case. That, I think, lends a lot of efficiency of time and management. Saves a lot of time. Then when you talk about legal tech, we are still in a paradoxical situation, in India, where, we at one point of time, we are talking about, data and data privacy and protection. Client confidentiality obviously is paramount, in any law firm, So, but we are at a particular point of time where at the same time, we're talking about traceability, origination of data. And we are looking at banning VPNs or, even blockchain is helpful, but then at the same time, we don't have anything to do with Bitcoin regulation here. So there is a paradigm, a paradox, I would say. We are at a time where the PDP bill is underway. So at one point of time, we are trying to guard privacy and confidentiality. I'm talking in terms of even client confidentiality, like in a law firm is paramount. But at the same time, government, and initiatives are looking at banning various technologies which help, conceal identities or even anonymization. So that's something we really need to look at with a closer lens. So while the lawmakers make the law at policy level, they should look into all these aspects, especially from the legal tech point of view, because we have to protect client interest and obviously law firm's interest. And therefore, the generic laws have to draw exceptions where client confidentiality protection should be allowed in such scenarios. That's something which I really want to say, because lawmakers at this point of time are ceased of making these laws in the country. And since we are talking at a forum, we are talking about legal tech. This aspect needs to be addressed while they make the laws. That's something which is important.
Thank you, Dr. Seth. Thank you for pointing those out. And it goes back to that whole thing, anything that is being adapted needs to, again, then be fit into the legal framework one way or another for it to actually even be spread out and accepted and adopted on a large scale. Dr. Duggal, I would like to come to you with the same question. What kind of legal tech solutions would you like to see be used more on a large scale, and what kind of work can be left to AI and tech?
Well, first and foremost, let's begin with the basic presumption. At least in the next 10 years or so, I'm not seeing any kind of a substitution of the human lawyer with the tech tools. Tech tools can only be enablers. When you use some of these early legal tech on AI, you have a lot of expectations, and most of the time you'll end up getting disappointed. Primarily because the technology is still at a very remarkably young age of its evolution in the context of legal tech in India per se. This legal tech is relatively remarkably well developed in the US, but in India, we are still at a very, very early days. So when we are at very early days, I think we need to go back on basics, things which will be relevant, which will be applicable in the Indian context, which Indian lawyers can use. The problem with the majority of legal tech solutions which get directly transported from the US to the Indian market is that they have not been customized, keeping in mind the peculiar requirements of the Indian profession or the Indian law firms per se. Also, most of the clients themselves have to be yet sensitized, because we still have a number of clients coming up with traditional mindsets where they would not necessarily be open to use of these kind of tech tools. But if we are going to have tech tools, we must have appropriate legal recognition of them. We must also have judiciary recognizing the use of these tools. That could be a good starting point, because today a lawyer or a law firm, a small or a medium law firm, is not invariably going to jump onto a new legal tech tool primarily because it's available. They will rather want to wait and watch to say, okay, hold on, let's see what the judiciary is saying. Is there any judgment where this has been quoted? Is there any order? Which tends to give far more confidence. I'm reminded in the context of the cyber forensics elements. There used to be this particular software of a company called Encase. Initially, nobody was very, very wanting to go ahead and use this particular software. Till such time, they got a couple of judgments where the judgments themselves mentioned about the use of a particular software. Once those judgments start coming in, then its adoption, not just by the law enforcement agencies, but also by law firms and lawyers, started growing at a remarkable pace. So number one, at this time of transition and interregnum that we currently are in, I would require and I would want more judicial recognition of tech tools. Number two, I would want legal tech tools to be more affordable. Let's not price these tech tools out of price of the Indian market. Let's remember that barring big law firms, which are a handful or a couple of hundreds to say the least, the majority of the Indian legal fraternity is in a different sector altogether. We're trying to afford these kinds of highly priced legal tech tools could itself be a big challenge. So they have to be priced in accordance with the Indian market. And thirdly, I think more capacity building is required to be done. Right now, there's a mindset. I'm a lawyer. Why should I use a tech tool? That's going to intrinsically diminish my value and utility. Maybe my client may want to even perceive in that particular direction. So both clients and also lawyers and law firms, I'm talking about the small and medium law firms, to have a changed mindset. You will have to have a futuristic open mindset to say, hold on, if anything, by a little bit of expenditure or investment can help save a lot of your time, effort, energy, cost, and efficiency, why should you not go ahead and use that? And in case if we can have some of the legal recognitions in either some case laws or in some kind of, shall I say, advisories given by the government, that could also be a good starting point. But right now, when I look at the complete legal fraternity in India as a whole, I find only a small, very small, minuscule minority which is currently open to the idea of really deploying legal tech to its best potential. A majority of the legal fraternity is still in the wait and watch approach. Yes, pandemic has come in, it's thrust video conferencing as an integral part. So to the extent minimal things are required, lawyers and law firms are using the same. But the moment you want them to be more proactive and to go ahead and expand their wings in terms of adoption of more legal tech, that's where I'm finding a mental block, a mindset issue. And that would need to be appropriately changed. But even otherwise, I find that the legal tech market in India is at a very nascent infancy stage. It needs to be supported and grown so that it can actually go ahead and address the customized needs of the Indian legal profession in the Indian context. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Duggal. And I think mentioning the capital aspect of this is so incredibly important. It is very difficult for people when the technology is so new. It's difficult for people to kind of make that judgment call on whether or not it's worth investing in. Especially, I can see that from private law firms and their point of view. And unless and until the sort of the bigger court system and they say like, no, this is absolutely necessary and will help you, or if we have more understanding about it, which is the other side, we're not going to see it progressing too fast. Mr. Mehta, your comments on this? How can
I think we are at sort of a crossroad. There is definitely a use for data and technology when it comes to storage, because as lawyers we are collectors of serious amount of paper, right? So I think that easily you have a very good in terms of tech tool, you have a very good way of saving storing paper and sort of keeping it as compact as possible. That's the first point. Second point is why talk about this since so long time we've been looking at case laws and so many other things through SEC Online and so many other portals which are over decades recognized by courts, recognized by judges, and these are absolutely things that are going on fine even as we speak today. A couple of more points. I think the pandemic is really while technology was progressing at a particular speed, I think the pandemic has really forced us to sit up and take notice and understand that where exactly this whole piece now fits in our day-to-day working life. I think the last point that I want to make is that why I say this is at a crossroad. It's because we are in the legal profession, which is so sort of widespread. Dealing with a lawyer who's probably just 2 years in the profession to someone who's 50 years in the profession, and you can't convince somebody that senior to say that listen, you just need to look at it from a computer, a laptop, or an iPad, so on and so forth. So so also it goes for many of the judges, many of the arbitrators. Of course, most efforts are being made, and that's why I say that we are slightly at a crossroad. But probably, as Mr. Duggal said, that for the next 10 years, I think lawyers can be substituted. The human element of a lawyer won't be able to be substituted. So I think we have to deal with that. So I think we probably have a more informed conversation in 2030 or 2030.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mehta. We have kind of actually gone over the time limit, so I will have to close the panel here. Thank you so much for giving us this time and talking about this topic. It's so incredibly relevant, and there's not much people, at least people like me, necessarily know about. So thank you, panelists, for coming here today and giving us your time.